Camera on this side. You'll fit.
Oh, hi. Yeah, we're back. Hey, so happy Sabbath again. Praise God, we're live again. We're going to go on to the next song. It's called Every Day. This morning, despite any technical difficulties, but we're here to pray, and we're just excited that I mentioned all we get together again in person. It definitely just it's definitely a lot more different to be more in person to praise and also have breakfast together. So I have no idea how the next thing we're going to say, but this is not something we're going to sing before we spend any like temptations that we go through or frustrations that we have, we realize those God are great to change that, reminding us to get to connected with Him. So on the psalmist, our prayer that we to be on the next part of our service. Thank you guys for joining us at this moment. We would like to just open this time for you guys to bow your heads and confess in prayer. The book of Chronicles, David has a special prayer. It's in the middle of a lot of things that are going on, but the writer stops and focuses on this prayer. Nothing going on, I believe. But this moment in time is all kind of stand still for this prayer. And that's what we want to do at this moment. We want to just stop and pray. Because we know God is listening to us when we pray. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for just being who you are. We want to thank you for getting us through this week. Whether it was good or bad, Lord, we know that you were there. We know that you were there present. Lord, as we guide you for a sermon, we just ask church. We're glad to be here today. We've got a lot of technical difficulties, but thank God we're able to push through, and we're able to put in some time to make sure that we at least have some sort of stream process. So as we try to figure out our equipment, we're going to reach out for help. Just keep us in our prayers as we're trying to figure out all the little details about it. But today what we're going to talk about is the human potential. And the question we want to ask is simple. How does God help us understand our human potential? What is it about God that helps us understand in this context? So before we begin, we're going to bow our heads and pray, and then we're going to dive into this. So bow our heads and pray. Father in heaven, Lord, thank you so much for your love, for your grace, for your goodness. I just ask you to be with us and help us be able to understand your word today, we pray. In Jesus' name. Amen. In order for us to understand our human potential, we have to dive into the beginning, the origin, and understand our original purpose. So you want to turn your Bibles with me. We're going to Genesis 1. And we're going to read verses 27 and 28. In Genesis 1, 27 and 28 says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and increase in number, and fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish, the sea, the birds of the sky, and every living creature that moves on the ground. In the original context, what we have here, within the context of Genesis, is that man was created, man and woman. Now, I want you to understand, because at first when we read this, we think to ourselves, the image of God is just a human being on its own, right? But the image of God is not just one human being on its own here. It's the male and female. The essence of community is where you have the image of God most clearly. Within the aspect of God creating male and female is where you have the true sense of spirituality. Now, I know that we live in a culture where we can be spiritual all on our own, where you don't need a community, you don't need a church. You can have this Eastern concept of going out and having a spiritual experience when you're just all by your lonesome. But the image of God doesn't work that way. The image of God always works within the context of community. So in this idea, when we look at our human potential, we are not an island. We are all based on a community. We are all made to be part of this community. And the more isolated you are, the more detrimental it is for us. Studies and research have shown that isolation is worse for your health than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Isolation itself deteriorates our very health and who we are supposed to be. Isolation is one of those things that is hard to explain, because you can be in a room full of people and still feel lonelier than you were by yourself. Because isolation doesn't necessarily mean proximity with someone else. It's a connection with someone else. In connection. So in this context, male and female with a proper connection is what created the image of God. It's a community in proper connection that created the image of God. How can we reach our human potential? There's always been figures that you see on the forefront. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. You have individuals that are historical leaders like John Calvin. You have Abraham Lincoln, and you have all these individuals, and you see them on the forefront. But what you don't see is all the people that are there to support them, because they were able to accomplish what they accomplished because of the community that they were a part of. They weren't islands to themselves. And in our human potential, whenever we look at ourselves as the image of God, we fully reflect the image of God more whenever we create the most authentic connection within our community. This isn't just about going to church, because going to church doesn't necessarily create this authentic community. You can go to church and you can shake someone's hand and they can say, oh yeah, hey, well, happy Sabbath, or it's great to be here, oh, life is great. And you can say exactly what you should say, but maybe not what your heart is saying. Authentic community is so different than just regular community. In this section, what we have is God created mankind in his own image, and he created them for community. But I want you to notice the next section, where it says, be fruitful and multiply. Now, when read this text, usually a husband would give his wife a nudge and says, hey, listen, we're meant to be fruitful. And they're not necessarily wrong, because this text is talking about intimacy. This is talking about this. But the word Betty, which is in the Hebrew, the word fruit, is also used to describe a whole range of things. The word fruitful, the word fruit, is usually referred to describe the way someone speaks that is edifying. The way someone's action builds up someone. The way someone is a human being in a beneficial way. Fruitfulness is a lot more than just physical intimacy with the opposite sex. Fruitfulness is the way that you build someone up. When you're in the image of God, it's not just about being in the community, but being in a community in a way where we all elevate each other. That's where we are most like God. Raise people up and not tear them down. As we keep on reading Scripture, there's another passage in Psalm 8 that helps us understand a little bit more of that. You want to read in Psalm 8? Psalm is the biggest book of the Bible. Usually, if you open up the middle, you can hit Psalm. And we're going to read Psalm 8. We're going to read verses 4 and 6. It says here, what is mankind that you are mindful of them, and human beings that you care for them? You have made them a little lower than the angels, and crowned them with glory and honor. You have made them rulers over the works of your hands, and put everything under their feet. This text strikes a perfect balance. It says we're made just a little bit lower than the angels. So, understand this context. When we think, a lot of people take this idea of being made in the image of God, and they literally think they're God on earth. They're pumped. But in this context, it kind of balances out, because there's no justification for ultimate harm to think that you're better than you really are. There's also no justification to think that you're worse than you really are. Because you're not made the lowest of low. You're just made a little lower than the angels. You're not made the highest of the high. You're just made a little lower than the angels. You're right in this dead center of meaning and purpose, where you are created in the image of God. But the next section is something that's communicated in the past. It says here, you were made to rule over all of creation, everything that God had made. So here, in the way that we connect with not just our community, but the way that we connect with our environment, this talks about animal life and nature itself. It's the way that we reflect God's image best. There's something about being able to be in harmony with nature that just creates this connection with God that is hard to explain. You can walk into a landscape and be wowed by it. When I went hiking, I went up half dome. It's probably one of the greatest experiences that I've had. I would recommend it. If you ever go to California, get up your set ready. You need to pack like a 4 to 12-hour trip because it's like 6 hours up, 6 hours down. It's exhausting, and it's very, like, you need to carry water, you need to carry like snacks. And I remember almost getting to the top, and I had my last power bar. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. So I'm eating it, and like I'm so tired from hiking up there that I thought, I'm gonna take a little nap with this power bar in my hand. So I kind of passed out a little bit, take a little nap. It's exhausting to eat. And I've been drinking water. More than half my water's gone already. And it's my last power bar, so I'm trying to make it last. And I pass out, and I feel this tugging in my hand. I wake up, and a squirrel literally rips the power bar from my hand, right? And he not only rips it from my hand, but he climbs up in a tree, and he eats it, and he looks down at me, and he's staring at me the whole time. I'm just like looking at my power bar. Last one. And I thought to myself, man, I'm still got like a couple miles to go. But I just pushed myself, because I thought, you know what? At this point, I thought about going back. I thought about stopping. I don't have enough food. I'm not going to make it. But I just pushed myself through. We climbed up, and I went up to the very top. And it was one of the most majestic scenes that I've seen. I sat there, and I felt so small, but yet so loved. I looked at the grand scheme of things, the landscape, the mountains, the trees, and I thought to myself, wonderful, beautiful creator. And I feel so small in the grand grand scheme of things. Yet at the same time, he had put me as this image bearer in this world. Blaise Pascal says, we live in the ultimate paradox as human beings because we're both miserable and yet gloriously made. We are visible because of the sin that we have encompassed ourselves in. And we're gloriously made because of the image of bear, the image of God. In this idea of human potential, if you think too much of yourself, you essentially do the same thing that Satan did and try to dethrone God and take God's position in your life. But if you think so low of yourself, then you truly don't take God at his word and still don't believe him. When he says that you are made with a purpose and you are made to be in a community with fruitful connection, meaning, and purpose. God created us for this. Man is also honored by the way that he exercises his right and his will. It says here how he rules over creation itself. Your expression of what you do with your own will is a big part of it. But now we're going to go to the last verse that we're going to cover today. Romans 3:23. Because although we see this potential, we live in a world where this potential is quite different. In Romans 3:23, it says here, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Now, at first when you read this, you probably heard this quoted plenty of times, but I want you to hear it again. It's given us a definition of what sin actually means. It's saying, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. This functional definition of sin, if you don't catch it properly, it will totally impact your whole theology. In this concept of sin, sin is not just you being a messed up person doing bad things. Sin is you not reaching your ultimate potential, which is to be image bearers of God. When you sin, you literally are not living up to your ultimate purpose God created you to do. This word sin is actually comes from the Greek hamartia. Hamartia it comes from someone that's arching it, and as a shoot the arrow, it goes to the target, but it doesn't reach it. It falls short, low. But if this is the definition of sin, I want you to imagine how different accountability looks whenever we're authentically connected with someone. Whenever someone is in sin and we call them out, anytime we call out someone in sin and we degrade their image of God, we're not adding to help them break their sin. We're adding to their shame and we're keeping them locked in their sin. If sin is falling short of the glory of God, to help someone stop sinning is us encouraging them to reach that glory of God. So anytime you define sin in someone else in a degrading, dehumanizing way, you're not helping them reach their ultimate potential. You're, in essence, locking them into their simple state. How do we look at this properly? For those that drive by and only see drug dealers and prostitutes as opposed to image bearers of God that are tainted. And all you do is you feel this disgust and this taste in your heart as opposed to potential individuals. You're not helping because sin is defined as falling short of the image of God. Falling short of the image of God. If you are not encouraging people to meet their potential, then you are not defining sin properly because sin is not about how broken we are. It's about our potential of who we can be. Sin is about pointing out that we are not quite where God had called us to be. There's a story of a woman at the well, and in the story of the woman at the well, she was being criticized, she was being talked bad about, and when Jesus finally connects with her, all he basically tells her is, you keep looking for meaning and happiness, all these men that don't love you. I can tell you that you're so worth loving. And it's this expression that eventually helps her be the individual that goes back to Samaria and talks to the whole city of Samaria and brings them to Jesus. Because you see, it wasn't the fact that Jesus down talked to her for her lifestyle. It wasn't the fact that Jesus looked at her and said, oh, this is another promiscuous woman. Instead, he looked at her and saw her brokenness and says, I see your potential. I see your potential. In this aspect of human connection, we're here to talk have fruitful conversations with each other. Wisdom in the book of Proverbs is
context of human potential, look at it. It's actually quite simple. Human potential is understanding that we are made in the image of God and we're made for connection. If we are made for connection, we are made for connection that's supposed to be a fruitful connection. Not just any type of connection, but this connection that we're supposed to understand this as not us being too pumped, too much of a high view of ourselves, or being too low of ourselves. It's for us to look at ourselves in the proper space that God has put us in. Image bearers. And within this proper space, when we look at sin, anytime sin is justified to the human eye, then you have not truly understood God's message. If you have to call out someone, or it makes them feel little, or it makes them feel not good enough, you have not done it the right way. Calling out someone in their sin is about encouraging them to be better. And the way that you speak to them shows how God has used you. And if you're not speaking fruitful words that encourage them, that enable them to be better, you're not bearing God's image at that point. You're not making meaningful. I started off in health in an ancillary position. And, I had just finished, I left out and I was a pastor up there for several years. And I just wanted to go into a different field, and I was trying to explore what the hospital was like. And as I'm going around, my trainer that's going to train me how to do my job, she's practicing lesbian. And she knows that I was a pastor. And she was really nice to me, the whole time. Just good interaction, talking to each other. And we're in the elevator, and it was just me and her, and we're going out, and she's like, "So, I heard you were a pastor." I was like, "Yeah, you're right." She's like, "So, you realize I'm lesbian, right?" I was like, "I mean, I heard, but you just confirmed it, I guess." I was like, and she was like, "So, does that mean I'm going to hell?" It's the ultimate question someone asks you. And I sat there and I thought to myself, I feel like if I were to answer that question, I'll have to play God right now. And I'm not very good at playing God because I'm a man. I think that God has a very beautiful story for your life, but I think that beautiful story is for you to know. You find it out by meeting Him. I'm not here to tell you your story for your life. I think that you need to hear that from God. What's your story? She looks at me, she's like, "I like that." I like that. And 2 minutes later, someone jumps into the elevator and says, "Oh, did you know he's a pastor? He's supposed to hate you or something." The guy jumped in and said that, right? And she laughs at him. She's like, "Why you gotta be so stupid?" Me and Zeke just had a deep conversation about that. You don't gotta come over here and ruin it, right? At the end of the day, honestly, I don't have to sit there and criticize someone for things that they feel that they struggle with. I'm not there for that. And just because their information isn't something, that's a conversation that we have. I was just with a friend that he told me a story that cracked me up. He was caught up in a really bad lifestyle. He was addicted to a lot of prescription medication that he was prescribed. He was telling a crazy story that his friend came to pick him up and he had 19 pills in his hand and he's looking and he's like, "Which one should I take for this party?" And his friend's like, "I don't know, man, just choose. Hurry up, we're about to go. We're running late already." And apparently he just stuck them all in his mouth. Took all 19 of them. I don't think he even knew what they were, and he took them. And he says that he was just crazy at the party, right? And he's telling me the story of all this, and then he says that he took his girlfriend to go get pizza afterwards, and they're sitting down, and they're ordering pizza. And this guy, he was raised Baptist, and she's like, "Oh, I'll get a pepperoni pizza." He's like, "No, we can't eat pepperoni. We gotta get cheese." And the girl's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Don't you know the Bible says not to eat pork?" She looks at him and says, You care about court? And he said, oh, he told me, he's like, at that point I thought to myself, it's over. We have no standards. It's never going to work, right? Like, do you think that that's actually the message that he needs to hear at that point? I think a lot of times in our brokenness, we're so caught up in the things that we are, and it's just super easy to criticize, right? Super easy to criticize. What would have been a deeper conversation is, what led to the situation where drugs was an okay decision for him to make? That's the type of people conversation that we need to have. That's the type of conversation. A lot of times we lie to ourselves and have religious conversations that have no connotation to our practical life because they're more comfortable than going deeper and that more inner aspect of our own souls. Have you ever noticed that it's more comfortable to talk about your brokenness than it is about your family history sometimes? Have you ever noticed that? A lot of times we're like, oh yeah, I really messed up. Oh, yeah, well, tell me about your dad. Did he ever love you? Oh, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there, right? Oh, well tell me, did your mom hug you? Oh, no, I'm not going to go there. You know that statistically, when we look at the percentages, kids that make decisions to use drugs and to get into promiscuous relationships early, 79% say that they wish that the dad would love and pay more attention to them. Crazy. 39 say it was their mom. Her mom was already a lot better paying attention to the kids, right? And the craziest thing is that we think, like, listen, God still holds us responsible for our decision. It doesn't necessarily mean that trauma is the basis to excuse our bad behavior. Because a lot of times we do that, right? We think, oh, they're in trauma, so therefore they have no responsibility for their actions. The Bible kind of looks at that quite differently. But the Bible, what it does is it takes into consideration their trauma and how that leads to their actions. And the Bible talks about how our brokenness begins within our family. Have you guys ever heard that passage in the Bible where it says that their sin will go on from generation to generation to generation? What's it talking about besides generational brokenness? And if we don't have meaningful conversations about this brokenness in ways where we can make intimate, beautiful conversations, then how can we ever expect to truly shine in the image of God? In this context, in communities, as long as we are real and authentic and we're willing to talk and not look at our sin as a thing to be ashamed of that we don't want to talk about, but as a way how we fall short of the image of God, and also as a community, we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to point ourselves at our true potential. Unless we do that, we're not truly bearing God's image. Because whenever we speak the truth to someone, we have to speak life into them. Not more death. Sin kills. And if you keep speaking to them in simple ways, you're just executing the faster from the spiritual life. If you're not speaking words of life, you're not helping them. So what do you do with your heart, your soul, whatever you call someone else? Ellen White, founder for the Seventh-day Adventists, said something really meaningful. She said, don't call out someone to their sin unless you want them to die. It's pretty big, right? I think a lot of times we're so easy to call someone out that we don't really care about. But in this context, we see that we can only speak words of life whenever we feel their heartbeat, our human potential is to form authentic communities. To understand that what makes us fall short of this glory of this image of God, the glory of God is synonymous with the image of God, by the way. It is the fact that we let go of being an authentic community. One of the biggest challenges we have in 2021 in our faith is the fact that we've been disconnected by a pandemic. We've been isolated from connecting with each other because of the fact that we had to stay at home. And then we come back to some sense of normalcy. Well, maybe we're not wearing masks. And maybe we're not connecting spiritually enough anymore. We forgot what it's like to have these authentic conversations, authentic connections. And in this context, we can hit a reset button and we can do one or two things. We can come out of this pandemic having more meaningful, beautiful conversations and connections, or we could be even worse at it. Now, I'll tell you what, right now, when we look at the whole church, not just Vineyard, but all of church, not just Adventism, but all Christianity all together, we're all heading towards the direction where we're having authentic connections. Even more so learn that it's not about proximity. But the key is found in the first verse that we read, to be fruitful and multiply. No, this is not about finding a wife and making much kids. This is about forming an authentic community that's open. One of the things that I struggle sometimes with my church and sometimes my church leadership is how much cliquish common life culture we can bring, right? I came down to Florida, and this is about 8 years ago. A bunch of pastors were going out to eat, and someone invited me to go out with them. There's about like 10 of them, right? They were all younger pastors, who were around my age range. And we were at Chili's, and they were all talking. And anyone that knows me, I'm a super social person. You can throw me in a circle where I don't know anyone, and I'll make friends quickly, right? It was such an awkward conversation. So I was there, like, talking about root beers and how they went to a root beer festival and how they had a root beer hangover. You know, they were obviously just joking around. They were just talking about it. I was like, oh, and, you know, I wanted it. I love root beer, actually. I was a little jealous. So I was just like, so what was your favorite root beer? And the most awkward conversation was whenever I would ask a question, they would all be talking and they'd all stop, look at me, answer the question, then go back to their own conversation, right? It was the most isolating thing. And this was amongst the people that were meeting our churches, right? And I felt so, and in order for you to disconnect me from the community, you have to really try to disconnect from the community, because I'm super social. And I felt super disconnected from there. So the question you want to ask yourself is the community that you're creating an authentic, beautiful community? Does it have a welcome sign or a beware while entering sign? Does it have a sign that says, listen, come in, the gate's open? Or does it say, this is my crew, this is my place, beware as you're coming in? Creating an authentic community, when it talks about multiplying, how do you know you're creating an authentic community? Is when you have a welcome sign up as opposed to the beware sign. Because God's communities are always open, not closed. So within this context, the human potential is only reached when you understand the image of God. The image of God is always found in fruitfulness. Fruitfulness is always found in the sense of community. And whenever you see someone falling short of this image of God, it's about encouraging them back in as opposed to encouraging them out. It's about speaking words of life. And how do you know you're a part of this community? How do you know? Are you welcoming people in? Are you creating this type of community? Disconnecting yourself from this type of community. If you have this type of community, do you have welcome signs up, or do you have beware while entering signs up? Which signs do you have? In Dante's Inferno, the poem about the 7 layers of hell, before the main character is about to enter hell, it says, beware of him that enters. For beyond this point, there is no hope. Is that a sign that you have up for those that are coming into your community? Or is your sign the sign that when we have the gates, what kind of community you're creating? So the question I want you to ask yourself is 2. Very simple. We've been focusing on Sabbath questions every sermon, especially when we're live streaming. This is the last 2 points that I'll make. 2 questions that I'll make. The first question is, am I part of this community where I feel like I'm part of an authentic, meaningful community where I can express, open up my heart, and someone can speak life and fruitfulness into my conversation and my own being? Am I part of this community? And if you can answer yes, it's great. But if you answer no, then it's time to try to find a community like this. The second one is simple. If you are part of a community like this, do you have a welcome sign up? Or do you have a do not enter sign? Because each one is defined differently, and only one of them is the image of God. So as we bow our heads and pray about this, I want you to think about the type of community you're forming and the type of connections that you need to make. Let's bow and pray. Father, Lord, thank you so much for allowing us to have this conversation of what it's like to be in the image of God, to understand what it's like to be able to connect with you with our heart, our soul, and our being. I just ask you to help us be able to answer these 2 questions. Are we part of a beautiful, loving, authentic community? The second, are we putting up welcome signs, or are we putting up beware while entering signs? Because that decide to be part of helping create. In Jesus' name.
Vineyard. We'll see you guys next week. Yeah. I got it.